Hey, good morning. It's Saturday morning with George and Phil. 22 minutes to help you become the best version of yourself. Whether you found yourself out of shape, struggling in a dead end job, or maybe in a job transition, we're your hosts, George Murray and Lenny Newman, pinch hitting for Phil Connor, who's away on leave, to help you move from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. We're glad you could join us this morning. Please note we encourage questions in the chat. We'll try to answer them as they come up. And it's great to see everybody. Hey, George.
Hey, good morning, Lenny. Hey, we're so grateful, as I said, for our viewers. Want to let everybody know we are on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. And if you see the show and you're watching on a pre-recording, hit the subscribe button so that you can get notification for the next shows. And good morning.
Well, George, I'm really excited this morning. Today is the first in a 12-part series that's going to basically mirror your new book, which is due out in May of 2022. And the title is Ignite, Engage, and Retain. Can you talk a little bit more about book number 2, Georgie?
Yes. Before we do, I want to thank the folks at Thrivent. Get their notification here and make sure we get So Thrivent, for more than 10 years, have been helping folks reach financial freedom. And the folks, including Skip Nelson, have been really helping people, especially if you're in career transition, making sure that you optimize your entire financial portfolio. And right now, the last half of this month, they're focusing on finding your old 401ks and RRAs, and then help you all those market gains that you may have had since the last financial meltdown, and it seems like that we're going a little bit uneasy the last couple of weeks, is that they can help you make sure that you weather the storm. And so we want to thank the folks at Thrivent and Skip Nelson, and hit the little right-hand corner scan button with your phone, and you can get a free consultation. It's worth it.
Thanks for that, George. And yes, a heartfelt thanks to the folks at Thrivent and Skip. So, George, back to your new book. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about it. Tell me a little bit about book number 2.
Yeah, so, as we know, the Great Resignation's been impacting for the last year and a half through this COVID. And one of the things that we have been told, but I maybe not really been focused on, is for the last 10 years plus, people have been talking about the lack of employee engagement. And so, especially this last year and a half is no different, where people have actually been shocked to the core to really look to see whether or not, hey, am I still on the right roadmap that I set out for myself? And if I need to, maybe I need to adjust. And so the book is really to help answer 3 questions. If I'm a business owner or a leader, and I have either an individual or a team that's fully not engaged, especially this hybrid workforce scenario, how do I turn that to core? The second question it's going to ask is if, I'm taking a new role, right? Getting hired or whatever, because a lot of people are. And one of the big challenges is engagement. How do I start off with the best foot forward? And the third and final question it's supposed to answer is hey, we're doing some great things, but we're still seeing that shift, and we're starting to see, some of our great talent leave us. How do I turn that around? So that's the premise of the book. I'm excited. It's definitely a lot different than getting hired, but hopefully it'll help the other half secure their talent in their workforce.
Well, George, I'm excited to learn more about it as we go through the next 11 or 12 shows and kind of mirroring the chapters in the book. But tell me a little bit more about this, the big disconnect, in terms of how that relates to current challenges businesses are facing today. What's caused us to be here? I mean, how did we get here?
Well, you know what? We're going to turn around and bring in a special guest that's been doing this a little bit longer. I want to welcome Dane Espegard to our show. He's created the dream machine. I mean, how many people want a dream machine, right? Creating teams of high performers who achieve extraordinary outcomes. Dane is a father, a husband, an author, and the manager of Vector Marketing. And so, Dane, like your book, here we go.
Happy to be here.
So, Dane, I'm curious. I want to jump right in. You obviously manage a lot of people in your day job, which I happen to know a little bit about. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what's happened with this great resignation. What's going on? I mean, help guys like me and George and some of our viewers get some insight to what's happening.
Yeah, I think that there's a multitude of things that have led to where we're at. I think that really the great resignation, I think, comes from a lack of engagement. There's a ton of different surveys and studies and stuff that's out there that will talk about, why people are leaving. And really, a lot of when this started was, I don't want to say ignited by, but I think it was encouraged through COVID. And, I look at COVID as just this almost big pause button that everybody hit at the same time. We didn't hit it. It was kind of, happened in all of our world.
Tripped over it.
Yeah. And what it forced us to do is it gave us this space to be able to say, hey, do I like what I'm doing? It isolated us. In other words, we're no longer in the office. It broke our normal habits and routines. And I think it gave everybody the opportunity to say, hey, if things aren't the way they were, how do I want them to be moving forward? And I think there was a lot of unhappy people and not engaged people in their current, roles. And that led to people saying, I don't need to do this. I can work from wherever. I can now get a job with a company 3 states over and not have to move my family. So I think that there's a lot of things that kind of, happen at the same time.
Hey, so Dane, love your book. I got it yesterday. Before I ask the question, it says, "Dear George, it's great to connect with you. You're a much better networker than Lenny Newman, but don't tell Lenny."
That's perfect. That's perfect. Lenny,
so don't tell Lenny.
Yeah, Lenny, don't leave the inside of yours to George though, because it says the same.
I won't. Trust me, it's between us.
Hey, so, one of the things we're having this mass exodus, what is something that a leader or a business owner can start on Monday to turn around and slow and even maybe stop that turnstile?
I think to start the process is really what the question should be, right? Not how to change it necessarily, because that's a much longer process in my opinion. But, one of the things, if you go through those surveys and the studies, one of the things that people are craving is to be valued as an individual and connected to. And, over the course of, we'll just call it the last decade, 2 decades, a lot of management styles, especially larger corporations, are still the exact same as they were in the 80s, right? In terms of, how we work with our people. And people have changed. And, there is a desire right now for people to just they want connection. And I think through COVID, it's even more that people want to be connected because we haven't had that. And so if I'm, somebody who wants to turn things around starting on Monday, I probably just start by trying to engage and connect with my people on a non-work basis, right? And that can be something as simple as, hey, finding something about the family that, hey, didn't you have a trip coming up? Or, how's your youngest or whatever? And really not going to, where those reports or, hey, we need to talk about your performance or, some sort of family connection.
Sure. So more of a personal touch, if you will, authentic, genuine, kind of a caring approach. So Dane, tell us a little bit about the book, The Dream Machine, the genesis of the book, and kind of how that came to be, and maybe just a brief outline of the book. Thank you, Vanna.
So the book came about. The system that's in the book, the Dream Machine, the Dream System is what I call it. I've been doing within my organization. I'm in the direct sales world with Cutco Cutlery. I've been doing that for 20 years. I've been doing this system within my team for the last 9 years, and it's worked really well. Every year we've kind of improved and added some tweaks to it and enhanced the program, and it's been great for the growth of our team and really the retention of our people. And I look at, what happened in the first year of COVID, and our team was booming when a lot of others in our organization weren't. And we didn't lose anybody during that time. And that's kind of when I decided, hey, I think this is a concept that should be out there, not just for my team. And so that's when the book kind of, was written, if you will. And then, the outline of it, essentially, I wanted to write a book that any business owner or team leader could take and just say, okay, I can implement that. So it's really meant to be a step-by-step guide for somebody who's, able to make those decisions within their organization. And I've had a lot of people that have gotten the book and sent me some questions and said, great. And they're off to the races. And I've had some other people that, set up a call to say, can we get a consult to go through this? And other people that just say, can you come in and do it? But it's very different than today's management style. We ask people we help facilitate the creation of 100 to 200 dreams. And then we essentially, try and show them how work can be the vehicle to connect them to the life of their dreams. Maybe this job that I have right now isn't my life's purpose, but can this job really be the vehicle for me to live the life of my dreams? And that's kind of the premise of it.
And when did you publish the book, Dane?
September 2021.
Okay, so it's relatively new in terms of it's just been out a short time. George, what questions do you have, buddy?
Hey, so Dane, I'm sure that you've experienced going in and helping these clients of yours. They have, hey, you know what? This person has been with us for quite a number of years, and it seems like the last couple of years they may have, turned negative. They're gossiping and everything else. What advice do you have as a leader to turn around? Do I just let that subside and focus on the 80-20 rule, or how do I approach and correct that so that I can get that full engagement across my whole team?
Yeah, I personally am somebody that would address it. I think the culture is something that's really important to me, because culture is kind of the invisible hand while you're not there, right? In other words, it directs people's behaviors and ideas and the direction of things within that organization. So for me, I've always kind of lived by we don't get what we want, we get what we tolerate. And so if I have somebody that's on my team, that is negative and, having these conversations over there, like, if I tolerate that, I'm going to get a lot more of it. And so for me, I would just address it individually with that person, sit down. And, if somebody hasn't been like that and now is, well, there's a lot of hope there. We could probably get them back to where they were at. And that might just be, they're not feeling engaged or challenged in their role. And so they have a lot of time on their hands. I typically find that somebody who's really engaged and busy isn't the person that's complaining. Right?
They're too busy. Yeah, they're too busy.
Yeah. Sometimes that's a sign that I, as the leader, need to challenge that person a little bit more. Right. But I'd address it and see what the issue is. If it's a newer person, that's how they've been the whole time. I know we're talking about how it's, a little bit harder in this climate to hire people, but I'd replace that person,
Sure. That's a good segue, Dane, to the next question. There's a recent poll that I think Harris conducted that talks about the two top causes for turnover: lack of career growth, followed by low pay. 3/4 of employees surveyed, they just felt like they were on their own when it comes to their own career development. So if I were to be a unique business leader, and I know a little bit about your background and the way you lead, what can you suggest to people who are tuning in to help develop their younger talent?
I think that is a great question. And, income becomes an issue if, again, these other things aren't there. But if I feel like I'm moving and growing, income is less of a thing. But to answer your question, I think, I don't think people are taught how to grow. So think about school, right? In high school and college, you're just kind of ushered into the next thing, and here's your classes. And that's kind of that process. And then, out the other side, you're pumped into the real world and you go to a corporation and it's just like, here I sit. And so if you look at it that way, I really think it's the organization's responsibility to then take that individual and say, all right, here's your 6-month growth plan, your 24-month growth plan, whatever it is, and keep that person moving. There's a quote that I love, which is progress is happiness. And so, if I can just keep somebody feeling as though they're getting better, right, their state of mind is going to be improved while they're at work. And that's really everything. So for me, it's, what does this person need help with, right? Where are their shortcomings, whether it be a personal thing, whether it's a professional skill, and then who in the organization can help with that. Because I definitely believe in I don't think you need to shop out all of that stuff. I think that, having a mentor-mentee mentality and culture within your organization. I don't know who doesn't like to contribute to others. Right?
Sure.
So if I'm a more senior person and somebody comes to me and says, or it comes to Lenny here and says, hey, Lenny, I've got a new guy on the team, George, and George needs a little bit of help with this. And I know in your career, you've really crushed it with that. Would you mind sitting down with him a couple of times a month, maybe just to, give him some ideas and some resources? Right there, there's a path now for that person, right?
So
Lenny does that on a weekly basis with me.
George is an exemplary student. He just requires a lot of attention. Hey,
Dana, words of affirmation. Words of affirmation.
Hey, Dana, I am curious. When you talk about career growth, how does that relate to the Dream Machine? I mean, it sounds like the two of those are pretty closely wound, just in terms of hearing you articulate, the book and how you've implemented it in your organization.
Yeah, the whole idea is from a quote: when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. And that's what I talk a lot about in the book. But if in my career, I can see hope in my development, right? If I can see the next promotion or the next opportunity, and I can clearly see that, I'm going to be working with a lot more vigor, engagement, and intention to be able to get there.
Mm-hmm.
The dreams, it's the same thing. So in other words, if I identify things that would get me really excited in my personal life, well, if I'm working towards those, it's probably going to require me to be a better version of me to do those things, right? Whether it's a health related thing. Hey, I want to go on a vacation. I need some money, right? I need I need the flexibility in my schedule. So all of these, I want to accomplish these things require me to maybe step up who I am. And that feeds the workplace also. Right. So again, the idea isn't we have a work life and a home life. It's like, no, we have one. And if I can get somebody inspired in work, great. But I'm always going to be able to get them inspired if I'm talking about their personal life and where they want to go.
Sure.
Hey, Dane, one of our viewers, Mark Grassman, I know Mark, good morning, Mark. He has a question. What is the effect from the Great Reset towards hiring highly specialized high-tech employees in the industry?
I think that when you look at the Great Reset of what's happening, the highly specialized, I think, we are in a tight labor market. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to attract the person that you want, I think it is really important for the organization to know exactly who they are and what their thing is. And so when I say thing, I mean, what makes it special? Why should somebody take your job at, let's just say, $90,000 when there's 10 other jobs that are right there at the same number or maybe a little higher? Like, what's going to differentiate your business compared to those? And for me, if I'm hiring, the best tool for me is, hey, why don't you talk to some of the people on my team? And I think that when an organization has that, when they put their people first, you can explain the role for that specialized individual and just say, why don't you talk to, a few individuals on the team just to kind of get their feel for it. They're going to do the best job of recruiting that person, even though it's not their job, because they're talking about a place that they really enjoy to work at. So I don't think that necessarily answers it as directly without knowing what the role is. But I think that that's always the best thing for an organization, is to be able to have their thing. So with us, we know it's the dreams thing. If I have somebody talk to a team member, they'll be like, have you heard about the dreams? And they'll get right into that stuff right away.
But what you're alluding to there, Dane, is the culture. You're trying to give them an insight to the culture through people who are currently employed with that company, regardless of what their area of expertise is. So,
or people that used to work here and have left, but they experienced it and it put them into a better place than wherever they were going.
Sure.
I think it's as important what people that work with you say, but the people that used to work with you. Right? Because they got to see the exit and how you really treat somebody. And I think that says a lot. So to be able to say, let me introduce you to somebody who worked with us 5 years ago, I mean, I think that says a lot.
Sure. No, I agree. I absolutely agree. Hey, I've got one last question before I let George ask his. Back in the day, there were the simple niceties when we were all working in offices, and you could give somebody a good morning, a pat on the back, you could in 3D see somebody. I'm just curious, what are some simple things you can suggest to people who are tuned in this morning that is, equivalent to a morning pat on the back or a good morning or a hello that you can do in this hybrid virtual world that we're in?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question right now, is like, how do we replace the face-to-face human touch, shake your hand, hey, Lenny, the water cooler conversation, right? And you have to be more intentional. I think with technology, it can be easier, but it doesn't happen just by proximity like it used to. And so when it comes to intentions with this, it's, who are the individuals that matter most within my organization, right? To me specifically in my role.
Right.
And then when am I interacting with those people on a basis that's not connected to their work? And I think if you just operate with that question, you'll figure it out, right? So for me, it's a combination of phone calls, FaceTimes, maybe sending a handwritten card, but then also knowing when is the next time I'm going to see this person, and can that be a cool experience, right? Can it be not just a meeting, but can it be something attached to that?
Can you tie that back to the dreams activities that are going on in your organization? Because I know.
Lenny's got inside baseball knowledge here when it comes to this. But we, what's great is the people that are on my team, I get their dreams list. So in other words, we facilitate the creation of this, and it's an invite, not an obligation. I'll just say, hey, Evan, would it be okay if you sent me your dreams list? Right. And the reason I want it is because, I like to show appreciation and gifts and contests and different stuff. I'd love to be able to have that so that I just know anytime that I'm trying to thank you and show you gratitude, I'm going to hit a home run with it. And it's not going to just be some gift card or something else. Yeah. And that way it allows me to, again, Christmas gifts. I just hop on all my Google sheets of all my team members and I look at their stuff and I say, for instance, tomorrow morning, I go to Las Vegas with my main sales manager. On his dreams list was to go to Vegas. He's a big player in my organization. And so for Christmas, I said, would you want to go to Vegas? And he said, I would love to. So we're going to Vegas tomorrow for his, kind of delayed Christmas. But
see, and arguably, Dane, that's much better than a good morning. I mean, it is. So George, what questions do you have, buddy?
So in your book, is it possible for anyone to get on the dream team? And what things do you look for or help develop for people to get on that dream team?
Yeah. So I think like the dreams process, any individual can do it. And so really this is just another way of saying, let me make a big bucket list. Let me do a big, goals exercise. I find that the list creation sometimes is challenging for people on their own. There's some free resources on my website and via email if somebody reaches out where we can give them kind of a master list that they can use to facilitate their own. Or to create their own. But once somebody has that, I just think it's more a what's next, and this is the dream stuff. In my experience is a very momentum based thing where once somebody just does one, it's like the smallest domino. They go back to their list and they say, what's next? What can I do, moving forward? I had a workshop recently that I did and somebody tagged me on Instagram and said, thank you so much for the dream stuff. He goes, I just signed up for a 6-week improv comedy course. I never would have done this before. Right. So once he does that, I guarantee he's going back to his dreams list to say, what's next? Right.
That's cool.
Well, hey, Dane, this time goes by really quick. And I got one last question. I have to read it because it's so long here, but sharing your insights in your book, and I'll show the book, but if the company has a recent toxic culture, let's say for the past few years, given the fact of COVID, what things to you suggest are those few actions an owner or leader should do differently?
Yeah. I think people are really bought into something that they help co-create. And so I think if I'm running an organization right now that I can tell, or maybe I just got brought in, right, kind of a regime change, and it's like, hey, you're tasked with turning this organization around. I think the first thing that I would do is find out who the leaders are, get them together, and then work on, hey, what are we trying to do here, and try and co-create. And what I mean by that is what's the culture going to be, and describe it. And also, what are the benchmarks? What are we actually trying to do here? Because I think when people are very clear on what the mission is, the path forward is going to show itself. But getting those key players together to then move forward with the new culture, I think is what has to happen.
Well, Dane, I want to thank you for generously giving 20 to 30 minutes of your time with us this morning and sharing all of your information and insights about dreams, your book, just a little bit about how your secret sauce, and all the leaders who have tuned in. I'm sure everyone will have picked up a tidbit or two or three or four from you. And I would encourage everybody to reach out to Dane and purchase the Dream Machine. So Dane, thank you again for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Hey, one last question for one of our viewers is saying that is the big shuffle, and I think we can answer this. Is the big shuffle causing a big shuffle in staffing budgets for organizations, and at what cost? Because you, an ex-CFO, should know this. What are the comps what comps arise deprioritizing, if anything?
Well, I think in terms of the budgets, George, it's really just a flip between full time and temporary. So I'd say there's obviously a lot of pressure. I'm not hearing a whole lot from people who I interact with that there's any pressure at all from a labor standpoint, other than finding people. It is a shift, in my opinion. That's kind of what I've seen.
Well, I can tell you, through the COVID, we've had challenges where, you've only had an annual time where you've reviewed salaries. But I can tell you in this last year, talking with a lot of executives, they're having to evaluate, especially the starting wages, those hard ones like warehouse people and stuff like that are very difficult to find. And it's challenging, right? So they've actually had to adjust starting salaries 2-3 times in this past year.
One thing I will share, George, that I've come across is a lot of the very proactive business leaders. They are looking out ahead, and they're trying to take those actions before they're required to take the actions, meaning being proactive. So to your point, maybe quarterly reviews in terms of compensation.
Well, hey guys, it goes by fast. I want to thank Dane Espegard for jumping on the show and kicking off our 12 session here on the Big Disconnect. Great book, by the way. I encourage everybody to grab it. And more importantly, maybe you need to grab it for one of your leaders or the business owners to help them give a little bit of influence as to how adjusting their culture can help both in the short term and the long term.
George, I'm going to do a plug for our next show. Next week, March 5th, we'll be continuing part 2 of our 12-part series that's going to track with your new book, Ignite, Engage, Retain. And the topic is, where is the trust? What a great topic.
Yeah, absolutely. As you guys can see, here's kind of like 12 of the 15 chapters in the book. And we're going to definitely have, I'm sure, a better knowledgeable speaker than we have on that particular topic. So I'm looking forward to it. And it is 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today. Thanks, George. So until next time, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for sharing your coffee with George and yours truly. Remember to achieve forward.
Get better.